first group of whistleblowers, top secret guys who'd been in these projects and putting information together, and began to, ad hoc sort of create a network that's now led to what we call the Disclosure Project globally. Here's the funny thing about it. It didn't start because I was doing anything with the government. I was with a group of people down on a beach near Pensacola, Florida. And we were doing a close encounter of the fifth kind contact experiment, where a group of people went out. We were attempting to make contact with one of these civilizations, and we had 4 of these UFOs just pop, materialized in the sky right in front of us. Welcome. I'd like to thank you for sharing your experience as military personnel, and because of people like you, the public are finding the truth out about the UFO issue. So if you could just introduce yourself and your background in the Coast Guard.
Yes, of course, Dr. Greer. My name is Shannon Lee. I'm now 39 years old. However, I was a 6-year veteran of the United States Coast Guard. I first enlisted back around, it was August of 2001. So it was about week 4 of basic training when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it all began.
Okay. And tell us about your experience. I know at some point you were deployed to Guam.
That's correct. Right after basic training, unlike some of the other branches in the Coast Guard, you don't go straight to A school, or you don't go right into the particular school immediately. You have to go right out to the fleet and work and get on a waiting list. So that was my first deployment. I was immediately stationed to the island of Guam. So that was my first duty station.
And tell me, what were your duties there?
I was specifically stationed aboard the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Sassafras, which is it was a 180-foot buoy tender at the time. Since then, it has been decommissioned and replaced by the newer class of 225-foot cutters to do the buoy tending operations now. But the ship that I was on had been first commissioned back during World War II, so it was actually a pretty old vessel.
Right. And what is buoy tending for people who don't understand that?
Yeah, so the main job that my ship and all other cutters in that class, we focus on repairing or repositioning buoys and many other types of aids to navigation within the harbors.
Okay.
And channel markers for shipping lanes. So it basically consists of a very large boom, or a crane, I guess you would call it. And so we would oftentimes pick the buoys up out of the water, and then there was usually a pretty long length of chain. There was a pretty complex process of slowly bringing up the chain section by section, and then we would get to the concrete weight at the that's anchors it to the seabed, and then we would have to pull all that up and then scrape the barnacles off of them, clean them, and then replace them in the proper spot, because lots of times buoys, they get knocked around during storms. There's lots of typhoons out there. So it's constant, grueling work.
Right. And when did you first come across mentions of the UFOs being seen in that area?
Okay, yeah. So as soon as I got out there, when I first arrived on the island.
When was that? What year and month?
This would have been, I want to say probably around the end of November, maybe beginning of December 2001.
Okay.
When I first arrived there. And within the first few days, I started hearing about, people were talking about many UFO sightings that I was probably going to be experiencing. And the thing about it is, when I first got out there, the cutter was actually underway. It was out to sea. So I just ended up working with the shore unit for the first week or so. So, before I even got to see the ship, I had already started hearing, rumors that there were lots of strange stuff that they would often encounter.
And what were these, for example, what were they describing? What was being described? You had mentioned before the Mariana Trench and objects.
Yes.
So if you can go into that in some detail.
Yeah, well, there was mentions of, flying saucer type things that were seen a lot, objects even going in and out of the water that were frequently sighted. And the Mariana Trench is actually, officially, I think it sits 250 miles directly south of Guam. But we very frequently would sail right over that. That was one of our, that was a pretty consistent route that we used to take.
Okay.
And sure enough, as I came to find out in the next few months, that was very much true. I guess that would be my, the first time I ever personally experienced or witnessed with my own eyes what I would say was a UFO hotspot.
And what did you see? What kind of events?
There were lots of mysterious craft in the sky, oftentimes in broad daylight. The most common types of craft I remember sighting were specifically just basic saucer-shaped objects. And one characteristic I remember, which was, I don't know, it's kind of exciting, is that they seemed to, in a couple of instances, I'd seen them kind of morph shape. It seemed like they would morph from like a disc shape into like a ball, and then it's hard to describe, but it was like a shape-shifting craft that I witnessed on multiple occasions.
Okay, interesting. And then, are there any of those events that stand out in particular before the major event that you were involved with? I think probably, I'm going to say it's within a week or two
before that event that we're about to get to. I had probably the clearest sighting of all. And it was pretty cool because I saw lights on the bottom of a craft, and I wanted to say, first, it was in broad daylight, so I got a pretty good look at it, and there were quite a few of us that were pointing at it, and we were just in awe. And it was a saucer-shaped craft, and underneath it there were 3 distinct lights, I remember, that just kept I don't know if you'd say they were rotating or flickering. There was some weird flicking motion going on with these lights, but then at one point they stopped, and I was looking, and there was nothing there though, like that would indicate like a line or anything. It just appeared to be a solid metallic craft, you know. I thought that was interesting how it was lighting up like that.
And was this when you were on the ship or on shore?
This was it was actually on the small boat.
Okay.
One of the ribs, the RHIs, we call them, rigid hull inflatables.
Mm-hmm.
I was out on a patrol just outside the harbor, and we were on a small boat.
Okay.
When I witnessed that.
And then there was do you know if those were tracked on radar or responded to in any way by the military?
That, I'm not sure, because the ship I was on at the time, we actually didn't have radar. We had sonar for depth finding and whatnot, but as far as radar, I couldn't tell you or not if they were tracked or if they showed up there. But I do know for a fact, despite what I've heard from other people's stories, we did actually log it every time we would see one of these UFOs or flying saucers, whatever, what have you. We would definitely, mark it down and log it as a contact. So.
Do you know what happened to those logs?
No clue.
Okay.
These were all handwritten logs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As far as I know, they were never digitized or computerized.
Okay.
So
now let's get into this major event that happened. Tell me how that day started, how the whole event began to unfold, just from the beginning.
Okay. So yeah, the day in question here, it started out as we knew ahead of time that we had sailing orders. We were to leave at 0800. I still remember this, and it had been a while because we were constantly in a state of disrepair. So just because of how old the equipment was and everything, we were, it had been, I'm wanting to say, probably a month and a half, maybe 2 months since we had last set sail, had the ability to. So we were well overdue to go out and do our standard drills and training, because we have a certain quota that we have to meet every month for fire drills, man overboard drills, general quarters, man your battle stations, that kind of thing. So we started out, and that's what our day consisted of, was lots of drills. And
when was this? Do you remember about what time of year or month?
Yeah, so the exact day and month, a little murky on, but I can definitively say it was sometime around between October and December of 2002.
Okay. And what happened subsequently?
So I know that we were just wrapping up our last drill for the day, and we were getting ready to head back to the harbor and more up at the pier. And all I know is then we ended up getting a call from I found this out later from the CEO. Our commanding officer had gotten a call from a Marine helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not exactly sure what was relayed in that call, but it was to the point where they sounded the general quarters alarm, which is, man your battle stations. And they said that they piped it over the intercom like, this is not a drill, like, GQ, general quarters, man your battle stations. So there was a lot of chaos and panic ensuing, because we weren't really used to that kind of thing as a buoy tender out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up, I can remember at the time, there was only one vessel that was in sight of us. Like, I just remember there was open ocean around us, and there was one vessel that was in the distance, and we started heading towards it. So as we got closer to it, then I noticed there was a helicopter that was kind of flying in the area. I guess you could say kind of shadowing it, but I wasn't really sure what was going on. And so the closer we got, then I realized there was a fishing vessel. Turns out it was a Taiwanese fishing vessel, and they had a very large metallic object that was, I don't know if it was tangled or stuck in their net, and they were kind of dragging it along with them, and they weren't stopping, even though apparently they had been given orders to stop, and they weren't doing it. Like, they weren't like trying to get away because they were moving really slow, but we couldn't get them to stop. So it kind of took a while to finally get them to figure out what's going on, and then we sent out our small boat, and a couple officers that were on the boarding team went, and I remember seeing one or two of them on board. Like, it looked like they were arguing, but I think there was a little bit of a language barrier, so I'm not sure how we were communicating with them exactly.
So your officers boarded the fishing vessel?
Yes.
Okay. And then they got them to stop?
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened?
Okay. At some point in by the time we had gotten like really close, probably within 100 feet of the vessel, we were told to stand down from the GQ, the general quarters. And in addition to that, everyone was ordered inside. Everyone was ordered to go inside the ship. No one was to come out until further instructions. So, trying to remember the exact sequence of events, like when that happened, but that happened right before the two officers had boarded their vessel.
Okay.
And
well, just go through what happened. It's fine. Just what happened next and next and next and next. Like, it's just, you can just share, what happened sequentially from their point.
Yeah. So once we finally got them to stop and everything, again, I'm not exactly sure, what was said or, how they got them to do that, but I was in the engine room at the time, and we didn't do the whole course of that last general quarters drill. We didn't have any comms for whatever reason with the bridge. We didn't have any communications. Two of the headsets weren't working. So I ended up being the messenger between the engine room and then the bridge. And so next thing I remember is we were given the order to fire up the emergency generator, which was, that's what we had to do to use the boom, to do buoy operations. It was a backup generator, but it was also for the boom. So, and then we were told that the object that was in their net, that we were gonna, we had orders to retrieve it, to lift it out of the water. So, that's basically what we started doing. There was a team, there was 6 officers and there was 2 enlisted. I was one of the 2 enlisted guys that were part of this team that were allowed to go outside and help to lift this thing out of the water. And the first thing we had to do was they basically just cut away their net that was around it, you know. I'm sure they probably weren't too happy about that, but at the same time, it was a tangled mess. And so, yeah, we just ended up cutting their net away. So one of the first things I really noticed is whatever this object was, it was very big for one thing, and it was floating too. It had some buoyant properties to it, which was pretty surprising, just given the size, the shape of it.
Can you describe the size and shape?
Yeah, of course. So it was I wanted to say it was probably between maybe 25 to 30 feet. It was perfectly round. It was a disc shape, or, saucer, whatever you call it. It had a very dull silverish color, I guess, if that makes any sense. Like it wasn't polished, and it was just weird. It didn't seem to give off any reflective properties or anything.
And what time of the day was this now?
This was probably, I want to say, late afternoon.
Okay.
I'm going to say around like maybe 4 p.m.-ish, I'd say, when we started getting it on board, like retrieving it out of the water.
And you were above board and the others were below deck because you had a clearance, a top secret?
That's correct, yes.
So can you discuss that? And that's why you were allowed up?
Yeah, I was later told that that's the reason why, because, I definitely was confused and asked that question, like, why me? I'm just a junior enlisted. And the other enlisted guy, he was only, I was an E3 at the time, a fireman, and he was an E4. He was a quartermaster 3rd class. So, yeah, that's apparently why we were chosen. And of course the officers, I think all of the officers had to have the clearance just to be an officer, I guess.
And so what ensued then after you saw this in the net? They cut it loose. What happened?
So, we ended up, so we grabbed a variety of materials. I think one of the main things that we used to help create like a harness to lift it, because obviously all we had was a hook, and there's nothing to hook onto a smooth disc. So we had a bunch of we had a lot of the mesh ladders that we would throw over the side of the ship. Sometimes, like if someone was to go out for a dive or swimming and then to climb back up on board, we had quite a bit of that material. It's very tough, very strong. And we ended up, I wasn't actually one of the ones that was out on the water doing that. I was on the deck at the time, but there was 3 officers that were worked on maneuvering this material underneath the craft in the water. And then sure enough, we got it to where it looked like it would hold, and then we ended up hooking the harness we had made to the boom. And so I remember when we lifted it, this object was heavy. Now I could tell you, we were used to lifting some pretty heavy buoys. From what I remember, there were 2 sizes that we used to lift mainly. There was the 14,000 pounds, and then there was the 18,000 pound ones. Mm-hmm. And this went, I could tell by how far to the left we were listing at the time that this was way heavier than that.
Heavier than the 18,000 pound one.
Yeah, that's my main reference I could use for the weight that I knew that was capable of.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm wanting to say it was we were listed to the side on about a 45-degree angle, I'd say, if I had to guess. So it was pretty heavy. And we ended up, surprisingly, I had my doubts, we swung it up over the main buoy deck, and we got it. We retrieved it.
And how close did you get to it?
I touched it. I was right there.
What did it feel like, and what did you observe that close?
Okay. So actually, I think I was the very first one that did touch it, because well, I remember one thing I did, I pounded on it, like, just to see, like, if it was solid, was there something inside? And it gave off a very deep thud sound with a slight echo, so that told me that it was hollow to some degree. Mm-hmm. There was definitely some kind of cavity in there.
Could it be scratched? I think you mentioned that someone tried to tell me about that.
Yeah, whatever this metal was, it was like perfect. It would not scratch. And myself, and I remember another officer as well, we had 4 concrete weights that we kept on the ship just for buoyancy to balance it out. Mm-hmm. So there were little chunks that would break off. So I took one of those broken chunks and just tried, knocking, scratching, and it was amazing. We could not put a mark on it.
Wow.
If you like this video and you want to see more amazing content, go ahead and check out the next video on our channel.